Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dave Crouch. This is the legislative update presented each month by the Williamson Inc., our chamber here in Chamber of Commerce here in Williamson County, and we're delighted to have a somewhat light audience on this rainy day here at Columbia State Community College, and glad to have your smiling faces with us. Also glad to have the crew from WCTV, Channel 3, Comcast here in Williamson County that is broadcasting us this morning, and their audience with us, and WAKM and Tom Lawrence. We appreciate your getting us on the air with the radio guest this morning. Our special guests this morning are from Spring Hill, Mayor Rick Graham and the City Administrator Victor Lay. Gentlemen, we're glad to have you with us this morning.
Thank you.
Lots and lots of things going on in Spring Hill. It's a busy place these days, it appears. And we just want to kind of get a little color on what's going on down there. Mr. Mayor, how long now have you been mayor at Spring Hill?
It's about 7 years.
7.
Yeah, going on April, 6.5 technically.
Is that a record for a mayor in Spring Hill?
We haven't had a two-term mayor in a while. There was a few one-term mayors in succession there.
So you're succeeding maybe a little better than average now then.
I hope so. I don't know.
I don't hear too much negative directed at you, so that must be a good sign.
Try to stay off the radar.
Stay out of the news. That's usually good. But Victor, now how long have you been city administrator there?
As of October, 10 years.
So you've outlasted, what, 3 mayors or 3 terms?
I've been involved in 3 terms, 2 mayors.
2 mayors. And things are going well from your perspective?
They are. Obviously, Spring Hill's just growing at an incredible pace, but the board is finding their niche with each other and beginning to make some progress with the new board that was elected in April. So things are moving along very well.
Great. Back to Rick just a minute. Why do you want to be mayor? Why do you like being mayor? What is it you're wanting to accomplish?
Well, especially the second term. The first term, I always tell people that we're doing things now that will bring dividends much later. Road projects takes 10 to 15 years to get them going, and we were so behind in road projects. The first term was mainly a lot of groundwork, building relationships with TDOT, getting the things established, getting even our own structure set up with Victor and his team, getting him the right team in place. And then the second term, what I really like, the last 2 years has been very, very productive. We've got so many road projects in the works now, about 120 million plus of things we're well committed to. The interstate interchange, Butner Lane, Butner Road, Highway 31's on the TDOT 3-year list now. The South Corridor study's moving. So this term, the last 2 years especially, has been very, very, and that's what I wanted to see. And that was probably the main reason that I did go for a second term, and to get those things going. And I tease people that, some of these roads, when they open, I may be out there on my walker, but when we get them open and going, but we have them moving.
So, Victor, what about you? Why? What do you like about being city administrator, and why? What are you trying to accomplish?
What attracted me to Spring Hill in the very beginning was that it was a challenge. I was actually called by a Municipal Technical Advisory Service, MTAS, called me and said, Victor, there's a great opportunity just up the road from where you are. You should consider it. They need some good administrative leadership. And I looked at it and decided I'd go for the challenge of that. Obviously, it was moving from a small city to a big city. Right. But now we've been able to take the staff, which were then really didn't even take ownership of their own financial budgets. It was all really at the administrator head. The department heads didn't do any of their own budgeting. We've now moved them to the point of where they are now responsible for their own budgets, and really brought the staff into a much more sophistication and common understanding of how the whole process works, so that they can cohesively work together to get projects done. And where you may involve Public Works, the police department, the utilities, sometimes even recreation, all involved in a common project in some fashion. So it's really to provide some common leadership and to keep that moving forward.
I want to say too, because Victor, I jokingly say all the time that Victor has experienced more than 10 years than most city administrators experienced in a whole career because of the growing pains Spring Hill has gone through and the major work we've had to do to catch up, but also get ahead on the South Spring Hill and the Murray side. Right. So it's, he has really been through a lot. And that first few years was a lot of, Spring Hill adjusting to being the 16th largest city in the state of Tennessee. It was a lot of adjustment from that small rural town to that. So that's been a big.
The last time you were here, you were just recovering from a cyber attack. Speaking of recovering from things, and I see one of your staff has recently been arrested because the cyber attack kind of made it difficult to track things, and so somebody's temptation overcame their good judgment. But are you recovered now from it? Is it?
We are, as far as everything with the city, the utilities, the financial side, we've got everything back into place there. It's interesting that you bring that particular topic up because on Monday of this week, I was actually giving a talk on cybersecurity for the American Power Association, basically relaying the incident that we had and how it impacted us and what things they should do to avoid it. The incident that you just recalled was very unfortunate, and of course, right in the middle of everyone having the stress, we had one employee decided to try to take advantage of it, and it's, I have a slide in my presentation that says it was pen and paper. It was not the 1980s all over again. But it was the pen and paper that was that person's undoing, because it was just as critical of record keeping as digital is today.
Now, I remember, again, the last time you were here, you had recently had an outsider do some fishing among your employees to see if they had learned their lesson yet, and some of them had not. Tell us about that.
So one of the things that we started doing after the cyber attack, we had already started some employee education, and we invoked a program that would randomly send phishing emails to the employees and also to BOMA. That's what I was going to say. Because BOMA get in, they're part of our network and our system too. And the emails will come across, and some of them started out, you could really easily tell that it was a phishing email. And if you clicked on the email and tried to open it, well, it would let you know immediately that you had clicked on the wrong thing, and you immediately had to go into training before you could even get to anything else on your computer. The first time that we ran that program, we probably had, and we have 200 employees, 250 employees, we probably had 25 or 30 of them that had clicked on that, including
a few aldermen,
including some aldermen and some department heads. And quite honestly, at the next department head meeting, I embarrassed those department heads by saying you, and you. A half dozen, maybe 8 that had clicked on it. Those go out every month, and so I get a report every month. And so now we've been doing it for a year and a half, and this last month I still had a new alderman that clicked on it. So we'll have to have some words of encouragement on those. But the good thing is that it keeps at the forefront the employees realize that they are our weakest link. And while we weren't hacked on that cyber, we invited that ransomware in because an employee opened up an email that they shouldn't have, and it allowed it to come through the firewall. So,
Right. So be careful what you open on your email.
absolutely.
Generally, things, though, are going well. I noticed you got an award recently as the 6th safest city in Tennessee.
Very, very excited about that. Very, very proud of that. I think that goes with the number one, the area that we're in. Spring Hill is a great. We're a young community that's vibrant and growing. I think also we have a good law enforcement. We don't have, when you look at our numbers statistically, we don't have the numbers of officers per capita that some of our neighbors to the north and to the south have, but it seems to work for us. People really respect the law enforcement there. And even when you go into traffic court, and we'll have pretty significant traffic courts, what you find is that there's still a lot of respect there for the judge, for the officers, even though, folks are being inconvenienced by having to come to court.
Right.
And so that's a very good thing.
Also, I want to add, in that top 10, only 3 of those cities were over 40,000, including us.
I wondered about that.
Yeah, so that even makes it even higher esteem for us. And then frankly, we're shorthanded. We still do not have enough policemen. So to have that happen and us striving to bring in more law enforcement and other first responders, we're pretty pleased with that.
Right.
So that means our police force is doing an excellent job.
Rick, a lot of the news around recently is about the GM strike and the GM plant there in Spring Hill. Did that really cause any long-term effects in Spring Hill? Did it affect your budgets? Did it affect anything about what you all have to deal with?
As far as the city level, not so much from my perspective, but we were at a social thing a couple of nights ago at Ripa Villa, and one of the local hotel owners was telling me how much it hurt him during the strike, that the hotel rooms were way down with the strike. So, but as far as we were very, very anxious to get it done, though, as fast as possible, and it's a safety aspect of it, and we did have a couple of safety incidents. One man was tragically killed off a bridge on traffic. So the sooner that thing came to an end, the better for us.
Right. Spring Hill's grown from about, I think, 2,000 people in around 1990, something over 40,000 now. That's pretty fast growth. And you recently had an election for 4 of your aldermen. 4 out of the 8 were up for either re-election or for running for the seat. And that seemed to be the topic of theirs in their platform is dealing with growth, dealing with traffic, dealing with all the things that growth produces. You've got 3 new aldermen now as a result of that election. Rick, what's changing as a result of 3 new aldermen coming on board, and how does that affect what we might see in Spring Hill?
Oh, we've already seen it. Anytime, every 2 years with an alderman election and every 4 years for the mayor election, there is an adjustment, especially with the income. And because what you hope is that they come in and we can catch them up to the board instead of the board going down to them and to their pace. Because some of them tend to come in and they want to slow things down until they catch up. We don't have that luxury. We've got too many projects, too many things going on. And and then it's an educational process for every one of them. Because some of them, frankly, they don't go to many meetings until they're elected, and then they have to learn and play catch up. And but the traffic and the issues that drive everybody to run for office in Spring Hill was the same. And when I was elected in 2007, That was the reason that we had 3 new aldermen when I came in, and we all ran because we were frustrated with the traffic and congestion and the growth. Spring Hill then was going through what I call the turbo growth years. 1,500 building permits a year was unsustainable. There was no way any city was going to keep up with that, our size. And now we're down to, we're doing that 800 range, which is what I call barely sustainable. But it hasn't changed much as far as elected coming in, as far as, reasons they run for office.
Right. So did you purposely slow it down to 800 building permits, or is that just?
No, that's it. We don't, but we do talk, and I've used the term tap the brakes a little bit, because, and I get stopped at church every week about why we don't stop the growth. Why don't you just end it? And they don't understand that that's not a good alternative. It's the turbo growth, like I mentioned a minute ago. We know the consequences. We know what happens with too much. But there's also the same amount of consequences with no growth. And frankly, we have too many projects and too many things. We have to have that income now, and we have to have that organic revenue growing to pay for these $120 million road projects we've got coming down. Plus, we need a new police headquarters. We need a new library. People want a performance arts center. People want a sports complex. I mean, it goes on and on. Our wish list besides just roads.
Victor, what do new aldermen bring to your job?
Well, they always bring a little bit of apprehensiveness to city staff, trying to understand exactly where their mindset is, what is their agenda as they come to the table, what are their biases when they come to the table. And so we've really spent the last 6-8 months trying to learn that, and we've seen in some of the decisions where their opinions on trying to slow growth or what we've seen that happen in some cases where there's been some division in the board on particular projects, rezoning projects that you might have thought, well, it's going to be a slam dunk, it's going to go through, and there's been lots of discussion, and it may have gone through, but it ended up on a split vote, and sometimes it didn't go through. But always the root issue was, how is this going to affect the growth in this area? What's it going to do? Are the roads ready for that growth yet? Is there something we need to be working on before it happens? So it's, from staff's perspective, really just trying to get and understand where they're at, and then trying to present the items that answer their questions so that they can make effective decisions. So it's a bit of a challenge every time you have an election.
I can only imagine how that causes the staff to have to adjust. But speaking of roads and traffic and that sort of thing, the big news is the I-65 interchange. Rick, you said that you've been working on that for a long time. How did it happen?
Well, again,
it hasn't happened yet. It's just
no, but it's well committed. It's contractual now, so thank goodness. And it was a lot of work there, because we knew that to get 70% of Spring Hill residents live on the north side of Spring Hill. In about 35-40% of our space. People wonder why we have a traffic problem. When you cram that many people into all one section. And then, so we knew that interstate interchange was going to be that pressure release valve of getting people on and off the interstate quickly. So getting that done. But again, we had to start from scratch. We had to get involved more with the MPO, GNRC, which we've done. Victor and I go to those meetings every month.
And who's the MPO and GNRC?
Yeah, Municipal Planning Organization, and then Greater Regional Nashville. And I'm a co-chair on that with the Mayor of Smyrna on the GRNC. And so that kind of involvement is what's been important to us in that aspect. But then on the flip side, we had to build a relationship with TDOT. And I saw Sam Whitson walk in a minute ago. Sam jokes that TDOT must have an office in Spring Hill now, because we have that much interaction now with TDOT, and the relationships improved so much. Victor and his staff, because Victor and I do one level of TDOT meetings, but then his folks do another level with TDOT. And I'm gonna mention one more thing, then I'm gonna let Victor elaborate. But the build grant, the $25 million grant, we were the only one in the state of Tennessee to get this new build grant. And that was just definitely a jump start to the program.
Right.
And TDOT's came in and worked with us on that one too, because we could not have done it. The strings that were tied to this grant, we couldn't do. Time frames, no way we could do it.
Right. Now, the new governor appointed a new transportation commissioner. We all know John Schroer. Such an easy guy to get along with and not opinionated at all. What's this new guy like?
Well, Commissioner Bright is a good guy as well. We got to meet with him right after he was appointed into that position, probably within a month or two, and we've had a good relationship with his office. Of course, the things that we typically deal with really start at the assistant commissioner level and go down. And so I've had a long-time relationship with Paul Deggs, who's been there for a
Forever.
very long time inside TDOT, known him for several years. You had asked about, well, how did this happen?
Mm-hmm.
The city was working on this probably for the last 8 or 9 years. We went through 2 different justification studies where there was never any guarantee that an interchange would happen. We had to first do studies, and we spent a couple $100,000 in those studies and trying to show that there was an impact and a need for an interchange in this location. Originally on TDOT's maps, the location was to go at Thompson Station Road as an existing place. However, in our deliberation and discussions with Thompson Station, they didn't want it there. And so, we had to coordinate with them and get their understanding and agreement that it would be removed off Thompson Station and moved south. Mm-hmm. And we came to those agreements with them. So there was lots of involvement early on. After about 6 years of all those pre-plans, 6, 7 years of it, we ended up applying, seeing the advertisement, applied for the build grant. Had no idea that we would get it. We seemed like we were a kind of a small fish. But what we've understood now is that because we as the city pledged so much city support, mm-hmm. You're talking about an interchange project that's probably $48 million. And basically what we said is, if you'll give us the 25, we'll come up with the rest. And so
$21 million.
For us, it's going to be about $21 million. The state will have a little bit in that as well. The state's going to actually take the $25 million grant and apply it to the interchange, and then whatever else the interchange costs above that, they'll pick up. But we'll have easily $20 million into the project. That in and of itself was one of what we found out to be one of the factors that really, when the feds looked at it, said, okay, here's a community that's willing to step up to the plate and be a true partner, mm-hmm. and is not asking for a handout, they're asking for help.
I understand is it going to be called Buckner Road or Lane? I can't remember which was which down there, but
Buckner Road.
What's the road going to be there when you
Buckner
see
Road.
the sign on the interstate?
Yeah, Buckner Road.
So, and it's going to go all the way over to Lewisburg Pike, I understand.
That's correct.
So it's going to relieve a lot of problems down in the lower part of the county. And
how many cities that have to build a road out of their city limits? That's us.
Say that again.
That road over to Lewisburg Pike, not all of that will be in Spring Hill.
And you're having to help pay for that.
We're paying for that.
Annex it.
Actually, in the annexation rules, they have to go through a referendum, and there are 3 property owners over there that it goes through, and we actually had their referendum just about a month ago or 2 months ago. Okay. So they're ready to come in.
Good. Now, um, that goes right through the Alexander property that's been farmed for many years. 800 acres, I think, still left there,
Right.
undeveloped, plus some other farms on the other side of I-65. What's that going to look like 20 years from now?
So the Alexander Farm, really even prior to us applying for the build grant, had already brought in a master development plan that got approved. And it consists of a mixture of I'll say, medium density residential, single family homes. It's got townhouses, apartment complex, but it's got a huge office component and commercial complex that really are geared around the interchange area, and then would filter out to Buckner Road and Buckner Lane.
So how do the commercial acreage versus residential acreage, what's the
split on
Yeah.
that? It's I would say it's probably 65, 45, yeah, probably 65, 45 of residential to commercial and or office, something on that order.
still several hundred acres of commercial?
And I hope I'm right saying this, but I've been told that, you could take the Cool Springs ball and drop it in there, and it's bigger than that.
It,
Commercial.
it's going to continue to change down there. Now, having been driving down to Murray County a lot lately, to a farm down there that I'm becoming more and more fond of, there's a little bottleneck between Saturn Parkway and 840, where the interstate kind of funnels down into 2 lanes each way. Is there any plan to relieve that along with this other?
Well, we have had conversations with TDOT about that as well. And wouldn't it be nice, Sam? Wouldn't it be nice if in conjunction with us constructing the new interchange, would they widen 65 at least from 840 down to the new Buckner Road interchange as part of all of that?
Saturn Parkway, please.
And then carry it all the way down to Saturn Parkway. So, yeah, we're having those conversations, and it's in TDOT's plan. It's just a matter of they can fund it. There are so many things that compete for their monies across the state,
Right.
But we're constantly asking them about that. And we'll say one. I don't know if it's a final thing or not, but we'll say on the interchange, the speed at which this project is moving, we will award that, or TDOT will award that to a design builder in September of 2020. You'll be driving on it in May of 2024. So it goes from design to construction all in about 4 years, or less than 4 years.
And it's all
Yeah.
Wow. Going to be fun to watch. And
explain the.
It's a diverging diamond is the style of the interchange on that. There's one over in at Sevierville. If you exit off of I-40, that it's going to be that same style.
McEwen right here beside us is similar, isn't it?
McEwen is a single point interchange.
Okay.
So a diverging diamond is really a very different styled.
Oh, okay.
You actually, when you enter it, you shift over to the opposite side of the road,
Okay.
but the efficiency of it is amazing. It really moves traffic, which is what we needed.
You won't have to yield to get up on and off the interstate. It'll be a continuous turn.
I believe we saw one of those out in Colorado when the chamber took a trip to Denver. That they're weird. You have to get used to them.
Yes, you do.
But yeah, they do take a lot of the conflicting points out of the interchange. Main Street. How long have I been hearing about getting Main Street widened down through Spring Hill? So we're making progress. How so, and how much? And
Well, the city reached out to TDOT. Once again, the state passed the gas tax and developed a 10-year plan. And Highway 31 is in that 10-year plan. We didn't want it to be at year 10. We wanted it to be earlier. So we reached out to TDOT and we said, look, what will it take to move this project to where you can get started on it quicker? And the city committed $2 million to do the environmental and the preliminary engineering and move that project sooner. So it's now, TDOT has committed funds to make that happen. We'll be paying that bill. They are doing their preliminary studies in-house right now, coming back and doing all of the current traffic counts and what all, getting ready to start that preliminary engineering and environmental work. So that will happen in this fiscal year. So we're hoping that we'll be at a point that maybe in a couple of years we can have that completed and be approaching TDOT for right-of-way acquisition dollars and construction dollars.
And time frame to expect that all to happen?
Hopefully within, we want it sooner than later, Sam, we would like it sooner than later. And Sam's obviously been an advocate for us, a true advocate for us there. But it works on TDOT's schedule.
Yeah. One that probably affects as many of your hometown residents as anything is the Duplex Road. Have I got that right? Yeah, Duplex Road widening. I get it and the other road mixed up, but the one right there on the southern border of Williamson County going through Spring Hill, that one is
Nearing completion.
Okay. What?
So by Christmas, what they hope they'll have is the entire thing in their curb runs done, all the major work completed, and in binder from one end to the other. They actually have on their contract to not finish until next fall, like September of 2020. The idea is that if they can get it all under binder by Christmas, that they'll come back and pave in the spring, and probably somewhere around April, they'll be finished with the project, if things go well.
Right.
And then that's, again, that's a road from the start till next year is about 13 years.
Signed the contract in 2006.
So that just shows you how long it takes to get a road from during the process.
Now, and Spring Hill helped fund that a lot as well, didn't it?
I was going to mention that one day. I'm glad you said that because a lot of people, this is going into it. We didn't understand the full scope ourselves because the city of Spring Hill, 110 right-of-way parcels, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So about 210, thank you, that's right. So 210 right-of-way parcels we had to purchase. TDOT told us in one meeting, which about floored us, that no other city in the state of Tennessee has taken on that much right-of-way acquisition for a road project, and it more than doubles what was done before. That's how big it was. And so it was something, if we'd known that going in, we may have said, I don't know.
Did you ever find the missing property owner that was non-existent or you couldn't find, I know, for a while?
Yeah, I think they've located them.
And that road project, the opening of it is so important to Spring Hill for the traffic because with our next project's Butner Lane in the interstate interchange, which we're going to do together.
Okay.
And Spring Hill's footing a lot of the bill for Butner Lane. Right. And so with those two, now you've got where 75% of our population can move east and get up on the interstate without even going close to 31 and going through Thompson Station. So that the Butner Road, the Duplex Road project is going to be, getting it open is huge.
I mean, that's right through a lot of your residential neighborhoods, so it'll help everybody down in there. One that you don't hear much about anymore, Saturn Parkway extension, but that one appears to me a really important piece of the infrastructure puzzle down around the Saturn plant and so forth. Is that what all is that gonna do for you?
So they'll extend Saturn Parkway across the GM property, and it'll have a bridge crossing over the CSX Railroad, and then widened Beechcroft Road out to essentially out to Claiborne Road, and then ultimately, and this is not TDOT hasn't designed it, but in their long range idea, it would ultimately carry a widened Beechcroft Road all the way out to Carter's Creek, and then a widened Carter's Creek up to 840, which would become essentially a southwestern bypass, which really helps GM tremendously. I'd had a conversation probably 6, 7 years ago with GM, and we were talking about how could we get a western bypass or southwestern bypass, and GM just was ecstatic about, do you understand how much money that would save us in travel time? And about a year after that, TDOT was calling me for a meeting to say, oh, we've got this project we're going to extend over. So
Seems like things move faster with TDOT when you can attach an economic development component to it.
I think the mayor can probably speak to that.
Yeah, that's one thing we learned in the TDOT meeting Victor's referring to. I learned that day very quickly that freight and commerce, interstate travel means a lot to TDOT. And when their antennas go flying up, when they hear that, even GM could cut, whatever it was, 20 miles or something off their travel moving, to get up moving west, it's important to them.
Now, some of the GM suppliers have located on Beechcroft, I think, haven't they? Is that going to be an industrial?
That's a very
Parker.
interested. If everybody remembers when Saturn Parkway opened, when he opened up Saturn Parkway, the state, designated that area to be industrial, and everybody thought it was going to be all those what was then Saturn spinoffs coming in, and they would populate all along Saturn Parkway. Well, it didn't happen. In fact, we have now rezoned just about every bit of that. Where they did go, the market went down Beechcroft, went down back behind the plant. So a good example there is, cities and municipalities can go out and say, hey, this is what this is going to be, and the market drives it. Market drives it. You can designate it, but they won't come.
Right.
And so it's funny how that works. But we've got 4 or 5 GM spinoffs now, with jobs varying from 400 to 800, 900, each one of them. And it's quite an employment base there. And then that was another factor during the strike because it kept them from working too.
Wow, that's interesting. The way all that stuff works, and best laid plans of mice and men, as they say, sometimes don't work out. Any other major road improvements going on? That's the ones I picked up.
We have down on the south side, we are just now completing also a bridge interconnect between the crossings, which is the major shopping area, and a new development to the north of that called the Columns, which the crossings only had one way in, one way out. It's our primary commercial shopping area, and quite honestly, during the Black Friday to Christmas, it was scary going in because there was so much traffic, and we as the public safety were looking at that going, I hope there's no incidents in there because it's going to be a barrier to get in and out. So we'd always been looking for a second access in there. The city built a bridge for a couple $1 million in a private-public partnership with the development to the north. They did the roadway infrastructure. We built the bridge. So now we have access to another signal that we're hoping that bridge opens up. We're crossing our fingers it'll open up by Black Friday. If not, it's actually the very next week, 1st of December. But there's been a lot of work there.
Now, does that, I've been trying to figure out in my mind which way that goes. Does it go back east from the crossings, or does it go back north?
So it goes actually north. If you go into the crossings and you're hitting the roundabout, if you exited toward the Olive Garden,
yeah,
you can, once we open the bridge, you can continue just going straight, and that will cross the bridge and go into the Columns development. And there's another traffic signal there, right there in front of the McDonald's.
Okay, gotcha. The fascinating to watch all that develop over the last 20 years, but
it really is. It really, in shorter time frame than that, it's really more like 11 or 12 years.
You've got new restaurants opening every week, it seems like, in Spring Hill. And is there any new ones to announce this week?
Well, the former manager of Fulian's, if you were there in the crossings, is opening up It's W Lens. I'm not sure exactly how she pronounces it, but Williams, I think is how she says it. That's going to be a little bit further up on the Williamson County side, right across from the Bellshire Shopping Center. Five Guys is going to be opening up first week of December. Oh, let's see, what else? Chili's has been approved in the former O'Charlie's space.
Which they're tearing down.
There's another one that's kind of an upscale, and I can never remember their name, that's going to be coming in the crossings. They're right north of Cracker Barrel.
The Texas chain.
Yeah, but I can't remember the name of it.
Tex-Mex.
Yeah, so won't have any trouble finding something to eat down there then.
Yeah, you can find something to eat.
That's good. Capital improvements. You had a meeting last night. I was telling Rick before we went on the air this morning, I tried everywhere to find an agenda for that meeting, and there didn't appear to be one on around. So tell me what went on and what capital improvements. There's two or three specific ones I want to talk about, but
Yep.
give us the broad brush, Rick.
Last night, the reason it wasn't much of an agenda, in fact, it was listed as just a discussion item.
Okay.
And most of the discussion was Victor giving us a presentation of Barr and Linden, our projects that we already have in years 1 through 8. And really, yeah, 1 through 8, because since we haven't updated this to this level in 2 years, we've got to add years 9 and 10 because we've got so many projects done in years 1 and 2. And then it's really front-loaded the first 6, 7 years. A lot of it's committed. Some of the stuff we've talked about today, all these projects. Some of them, we have to do, but we're not into the planning to a high degree yet. So last night was mainly Victor. I guess it was about an hour and a half.
Sounds like it was just more numbers and
Yes.
bookkeeping and things like that.
So the city has, in our existing 10-year plan, we have about $180 million worth of projects. And so what we were doing last night was, as you mentioned before, we had 3 new aldermen. They've never been involved in the CIP process. So it was a reiteration of what's existing in the plan, and then the offering of some of those projects we haven't yet committed the monies to. So do those projects still fit in what we want to do over the 10 years? And then we went through a listing of projects that had been considered but didn't make it into the 10-year plan, and then new projects that staff has now identified that need to be considered, with the idea that we could educate the BOMA on here's what we have, here's what's needed, and then at our next meeting, they'll be able to come in and hopefully start setting some of those priorities so that we can establish what the next 10-year plan is going to be. And then after that, subsequently to that meeting, the staff will figure out the funding mechanism for it.
Let's don't worry about the process here this morning. Let's talk about the projects.
Okay.
The last BOMA meeting, Rick, you had appointed a task force to look at doing a sportsplex in Spring Hill, and they made a presentation earlier this month to the board. Sounds like what Williamson County is trying to do already. Is that what's going on? Tell us about it.
Well, Spring Hill, we have a dire need for ball fields, just frankly, park space and ball fields. Because of our road projects, those have taken the back burner type on those capital improvement projects. So the sportsplex is something that there's 2 needs. There's one, it's a local sports arena type facilities that can be put anywhere in Spring Hill because the locals would know where to go for the ball fields and all. It would not be so much about the tournaments and those kind of things, but it just gets kids playing ball in Spring Hill, practice fields and ball fields. And then the sportsplex idea is a grander scope. And just to give you an idea, at the very end of their presentation, they had asked for us to to put in a placeholder in our CIP for $50 million. So, you're looking at something that's more than 100 acres, would be for tournaments and things like that. Will that happen? We don't know. So it's another one of those things we're putting on the table to talk about and look at. Can we even afford something like that with all our, you've heard today, just how many millions of dollars we've talked about today.
Right.
Can you really add another one?
Any farm owners around Spring Hill that would like their name on something like that if they just donate the property?
None we know of.
We haven't found it yet.
And speaking of trying to find it, if you've ever been to the one in Decatur, Alabama, if it wasn't for Google Maps, you'd never be able to find that one. So I'd recommend making it a little easier than they have. But now you're working with the Williamson County Sports Authority, or at least conversing with them. Is that any possibility of coordinating with them on something, or how's that going to work out?
Well, right now we're because they did a study, feasibility study. Was it 2 years ago, something? And we've talked to Rogers, Anderson, a couple of the others about doing revisiting that, not a full scope again, because when they did that 2 years ago, Spring Hill was not included.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd like to work with them as far as doing that again, and this time include Spring Hill. And it probably shouldn't be near as expensive and all to do that this time.
Okay. Time's getting away from us, but I did want to get an update on the Northfield complex. Rick, tell us what the intent was there, where it's at, and what to expect.
Well, we're basically on a stall. The Northfield complex, I still feel very strongly it was a good purchase a couple years ago, and it was going to serve a need to get our several departments moved in there, codes and public works, and then put in a new Spring Hill Police Department headquarters, which we've got to do because we're releasing space now that's going to expire, and the potential of a library. And but the board, this goes back to the complexities of adding 3 new aldermen and all. We're basically revisiting it. We approved this week for a $100,000 study to come in and determine, the building, what's the word, capabilities or building assessment. Is a better word for that. And so we'll have to wait until that is bid out and brought back. In the meantime, everything's on hold.
Okay. On a lighter note, a couple of years ago, you bought the Ripavilla plantation. That's probably not the word to use, but the Ripavilla property across from the GM plant as a event place park. How's that working out?
It's working great, and we did not have to buy it. It was given to us, and since then, it alone more than doubled our parking space. But it's a gem. Ripavilla, Beck, we had a chamber meeting there the other night. It's such a gem for Spring Hill, and it brings so many, the tourism and all has expanded so much with that being in Spring Hill. So we're glad to have it in our city. And we went through a lot of pain and the effort to make sure we protected that land for the next 200 years, where future boards, future mayors cannot turn it into something we would never desire.
Great. Mr. Sam, our 65th District State Representative, Spring Hill's done a lot right. And probably some other cities around the state could take some lessons from them from your perspective. Tell us what you think.
Well, from the very beginning, Rick and Victor have been so involved in the transportation aspect. I did say that TDOT Region 3 probably has an annex down there in Spring Hill City Hall, and it really shows the leadership. and their cooperation in working with TDOT has made such a difference. You know, on the Improve Act, the list of projects were not inflation adjusted. So cities had to step up, and Spring Hill identified that early on to get those projects to contribute money to get TDOT to jumpstart those and get them on the 3-year plan that they talked about. And that has made all the difference in the world. And a lot of cities complain, and unfortunately they kind of develop an adversarial relationship with TDOT, where you take the leadership at Spring Hill and Fairview and here in Franklin, they have taken a team approach with TDOT, and it's made all the difference in the world. It makes our job easy, and that is an interesting concept, and we will follow up about expanding and widening 65 from that new interchange up. That is a bottleneck. But Victor and Rick, they are involved, and I think I've been to more TDOT meetings in Spring Hill than I've been in Nashville. And I came here to get out of buying a Christmas tree this morning, so I don't know if that worked or not.
You may have put that off for an hour or two, but I bet you still get to do that. First Lady of the 65th District, Pam. I'm sure you could give us some inside information on what the 65th District representative deals with on a daily basis. You want to share some of those with us?
No, not really.
She is such a good supporter of you, Sam, and we enjoy having Pam with us.
And this makes such a difference, this forum and program. You can tell she's a little shy.
She is a huge supporter, and we love having her with us. Got time for a question or two, I think, and wonder if our audience has any. Tom Lawrence, resident of Spring Hill for how many years?
Long time.
Long time.
You talked about annexing to the east. What about annexing to the west, out toward Carter's Creek Way? There's been a recent controversy about commercial coming to Carter's Creek, and that got shut down kind of fast. But Spring Hill's got to go in one direction. You mentioned east. What about west?
I don't know of anything going that direction. And again, Spring Hill, I think we have a reputation of invading and annexing, and we never have. As far as our records show, we have never forced annexed anybody, even before the current state laws changed. So we only annex by application. And we've had a couple turned down here recently. We've had a couple annexations that didn't pass the board. But I don't know of anything going that direction. Been requested you.
And that is also outside our urban growth boundary. So you have to go through the referendum process in order to do that. Where if it were inside our urban growth boundary, we could still do it just by ordinance or resolution.
And I just want to say too, annexation, expanding our boundaries is not one of our high priorities. We have enough to do within our own, what we have already, and what we've got planned for what's in our urban growth boundary. It's plenty enough for us.
Got a lady here that wants to ask a question. Identify yourself and tell us where you live.
Hi, I am Vilma Cueva, a resident of Spring Hill for the past 20 years. And I have lived in New York for 11 years, in Florida 4 years, and 20 in Spring Hill, of course. Wonderful, humongous projects that we are doing in our city. But something very simple that comes down to the regular people in the Williamson County. My concern is there any plans, anything included in your short-term, long-term plans for public transportation to connect Franklin, Spring Hill, and Columbia? Because besides the issues with the traffic, there is a lot of people that don't have transportation between 8 and 5, meanwhile other people is working outside of the city. So if somehow we can provide, some hours of public transportation, there is a lot of elderly people that cannot go even to go to the hospital because they don't have the means to go, and they have to be calling everybody in the church or in town to be moved into going to an appointment. So that would be something that if you can take into consideration.
I can tell you that we have been working with, on the Columbia side, there is the Murray County Transportation. I've seen, if you've been around the Spring Hill crossings, you've seen the bus that looks like the trolley that will occasionally go through that area. It travels the entire length of Murray County. We've been working with them to put a route in Spring Hill so that it would connect from the crossings, that would be the interchange point, and bring it on up into Spring Hill. And initially, it would come around and connect the Murray side of Spring Hill, because that's where it's essentially being funded out of. And there are actually grant funds that would be paying for that and keeping those costs down for the people who would ride it. We haven't yet had an opportunity to work on a connector that would take someone from that point and move them farther north to tie into the Franklin system or the other. But we as a city, we do subsidize the 95X bus that runs all the way to Nashville. There's 2 buses every morning. We contribute pretty heavily to that, once again, to keep those rates subsidized. And we just passed in this budget, I forgot how much was it, 20,000 that we for hitch, where we put money in the budget to sponsor, and I think that sponsor is going to end up being Hitch, basically rideshare programs, once again, to help drive down the cost and increase the opportunities for people to have alternate modes of transportation. So yes, we're very interested in that and trying to work the projects that we have and within the means that we have to do it.
Oh, I'm Jim Peterson from Franklin. I'm just curious about whether the fact that you straddle a county line and basically have to deal with 2 different county governments presents any special kind of issues for you.
I can tell you from my perspective, I don't find it, the challenge is that sometimes the projects that you're involved in, if they're using federal funds, may end up being jurisdiction specific, and you can't cross the county line with, if we've got a qualifier in Murray County for certain federal funds, it won't necessarily cross into Williamson County, and so we have to be very location specific. But that's really the only challenge that I found. What I've actually found is that it's an incredible benefit. We have twice as many legislators working for us as other areas. And so, we have Sam, which does a fabulous job on the north side. We have Jack Johnson as our state senator, and Glenn Casta, who's got a portion of Spring Hill on the south side. We've got Joey Hensley, we had Sheila Butt, and others that are, and Scott Sapicki, who's working for us on the south side. So we get 2 state senators, we get about 4 different representatives that are all pulling for us, and so I find it to actually be a benefit.
Teresa Harris, you get the first question in our next meeting. So, gentlemen, enjoyed learning all the ins and outs of what's going on in Spring Hill. Appreciate your taking the time to be here and sharing all that with us. So thankful for our audience here at Columbia State Community College, and for Columbia State hosting us here at this beautiful facility. If you have not seen the campus here, you need to come and see it. It is a beautiful addition to Williamson County, and we appreciate you all sharing it with us. Thank you to our sponsors, Lynn with Vanderbilt, Lynn Maddox, and Dennis Wagner. I don't see this morning, but AT&T helped make this happen. Who's our coffee from this morning, Kel? Community Coffee. Okay, still Community Coffee. We do have coffee here. We couldn't do this show without it, and we very much appreciate that. Creed Henderson and the WCTV crew make us look good every month, and Tom Lawrence on WAKM makes it worldwide by their website and their air here in the county. And Kel McDowell and Nancy Conway and Griffin, and I presume Matt behind the scenes, supports this effort too, but we appreciate all you all do to help coordinate and make all this happen. Next show will be in January. We're going to give you Christmas off, and in January our legislative delegation will be back Legislature will be in session in Nashville, and we'll be trying to get the inside story on what's going on in Nashville, and Sam and his colleagues will be here to help us understand that. Hope you'll be with us. Enjoyed having you all today. Look forward to having you again. Take care.